Good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you're looking at this. We're going to go over part 2 of our cooling system tutorial. Now before we get going, I want to go over a disclaimer that do not do any of this without the right training or supervision. This is designed to give you some idea of what is involved in cooling system services and testing. So remember, always look for the right training, get the right training, or get the proper supervision to attempt what you're about to see now. With that in mind, let's go for a quick review. We know why we are going to have a liquid-cooled engine. It allows for higher compression, it works better at all altitudes, and it gives us heat in a very efficient way in the heating the passenger compartment. It's hard to do it like a Volkswagen did back in the day when they used exhaust to use a heat exchanger against the exhaust pipe to heat the inside of the car. This is safer and it's much more efficient. Today we'll be looking at all these parts, from the coolant, water pump, thermostat, belts, hoses, freeze plugs, all of these things. I would take note of these and the skills that we'll be using for testing. We're going to go through pressure testing, freeze point testing, metal contamination, debris and color, temperature, control conditions, restrictions and flows, leaks, and all of that stuff today. Really quickly, let's go over to the flow of the coolant. When we talk about the flow of the coolant, remember that we're going to be going in cooling each side separately. The water pump will be taking it in from the radiator at this point at the bottom in this particular vehicle, through this side and this side separately. Then it will go through the top water jackets here, coming out of the block, cooling the cylinders first. And if I shine my light here, you can look at the intake part right here, and you can see my light shining right through there. And if you go through here, you can see the water jacket as you look down in here. And from there to the heads and out to the thermostat. Again, the review. On the review, we have a radiator. Both of them have a petcock or a drain valve here and a drain valve here. However, this radiator here is designed for an automatic transmission because it has cooling tubes here and here. This is the in one, this is the out one, and there is a coil in here that is under liquid coolant and cooled through the radiator as part of the radiator, and that is important. Also remember, the condenser is a condenser for the air conditioner. This is not part of the radiator. It is the air conditioner condenser that is in front of the radiator with the electric cooling fan. This is just a radiator with no condenser. Here is the heater core. We see what the heater core looks like. It's just a simple radiator that has a fan blowing this direction or whatever direction, maybe this direction, and when it goes cold air here, blows through this radiator that is heated and gives you hot air in the engine compartment. These are the thermostat housings where the thermostat is in the housing and it allows the water or the coolant to escape to the radiator when this valve is hot enough to open up. That is our review for the day. Now let's go over to do the service, shall we? Okay, so let's go over this particular vehicle. Now I want to show you first the components. We have the top where the heat and the hot coolant comes out. This is the coolant that needs to be cooled, and it comes through to the top of the radiator, goes across the top, drops down, and gets to the bottom of the radiator, and again is picked up on the suction side where the water pump, and you can see where it's separated there. There's the hose disconnected from the water pump. This is already cooled and ready to cool the engine again through the water jackets that you just saw. Now let's go over and take a look at the parts really quick, and we're going to visit why we're going to do this cooling system. Okay, first off, we pulled out a sleeve and we found out that there is a lot of rust in this cooling system. It's terrible. So we know that the system is hammered. It's got a lot of wear on it. Also, the heater control valve, which opens and closes the coolant that goes to that heater core that you just saw. If you look inside of here, you can see how plugged the whole system was at one time. From there, we can see that the thermostat is slammed closed. It did not allow it to open. We could not get this to open and allow the vehicle to cool. It stayed shut, and it actually boiled at the bottom where the water jackets were. The radiator cap, you can see, is completely rusty, completely non-functional. It stays shut. It doesn't allow this valve to operate very well. I can barely move it. So it's a very bad system. When we look at some defective thermostats, however, we have this defective one right here. And this one here is, you can see, stuck open. You can see the light right there. That one is actually stuck open. So that one does not allow the vehicle to operate to operating temperatures. It keeps it open, so in the wintertime, really never gets hot enough to heat the compartment if it's really cold, the passenger compartment. So we have two scenarios. One thermostat is slammed shut. The other one is stuck open. And that is our scenario for these reasons for doing the cooling system flush. Quickly, I want to go over a new tool today. Today we have a hose clamp pliers that looks like this. And the way it works is very simple. It grabs onto these spring clamps like this, and you can kind of see it locks out here. This is a locking mechanism, allows it to open up, and you grab onto the spring like this, and you can watch it as I clamp. You can watch it go big. See how it opens up? And not only that, but it actually locks here, so I can let go of this, and that stays open. Now to let it close, I just simply trigger this here, and you can see how it closes. This makes it so much easier than a pair of pliers. Trying to use a pair of pliers to do the job is insane. When you have a tool like this, you can almost see the enormous hassle it would be just to try to work that like that and get into tough areas. So there's your new tool of the day. We'll put that off to the side over here. And now, with an introduction to what we're doing right now, we're going to go through the setup. It's extremely important. Our setup is as follows. We have our safety glasses here, and what I like to do is any kind of extra parts I'll put in a part drawer like here. All right, we have our testing tools here, and the tools that are lever handles like our pry bars, our Carter key remover tool, our hose clamp loosening tool. Let's get through all of these. We also have a mirror, extremely important. We'll put that up there. We have a brush, and we have scrapers. I like to put these up here too as well because they fit really well. And we have, not only do we have brushes, we have sockets, and we have end wrenches, speed wrenches, everything we need to undo the thermostat and thermostat housing, as well as a new tool to separate the hose in smaller hoses from the connection part. We have an offset end wrench and screwdrivers that we need. This is our setup, and this is part of the parts we need. And here is a new tool that we'll be using today. It's a gasket remover tool hooked to a 90-degree offset die grinder in conjunction with the drill. This one will get the heavy debris. This one will clean off the debris and smooth out the surfaces. We'll show you that later. Also, we'll be replacing some of the old hose with 5/8" heater hose. This is the heater hose right here. So with that in mind, we get all of our parts and everything out of the way. We've got our testing stuff here, our spare parts here. We have our rags down here. Everything we need to do the test, which has already been done. And all of the tools that we're going to need are here and ready to go, with our products here, from our car cleaner to our lubricants to our silicone to flashlights, everything we need, even including our pressure tester if that's what we need to do. So with that, let's go ahead and go through our whole mega flush, which is the mega flush and this is something very few shops do, but if you've got a system as bad as this one that's rusty, this is what you're going to need to do. Okay, so let's go through the Mega Flush function. First off, you can see that I've removed the thermostat. Now water has a clear channel to go straight through and back flush through the block, starting at the top, going through the heads, through the water jacket, and we'll video out the pump here. You'll see at the water pump down in here, the water will be coming out. It'll be water, not coolant. We have taken and drained the coolant, disconnecting that lower hose, and it has been recycled. Now we have nothing but straight rust in water in this, so we can drain it onto the ground. So here we go. Moving on, we're going to put the hose down in here. Now, I like to do real world stuff. In the real world, in the video world, everything is set up perfectly. There's no hassles. Every tool is there. I don't have a nozzle to spray in here, so look what I've done. I've shut the water off. All I had to do is kink the hose. With that, I'll grab it here and I'll put it down there. Now you notice it's leaking here and it's leaking out here. This is the outgoing part to the heater core. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in right there. And what you can see is it should be coming out here, and it is. It's not coming out really well, but it's coming out, and it's redirected it. Now you can see down by the water pump that it's coming out clear, and it's coming out clean. That's a pretty good sign that we're on the right track. Next, I am going to kink the hose again. Now that I've got the block completely flushed out. Now keep in mind, I've been flushing this block for quite a while. You will need to flush it a lot longer. But now comes time to clean the heater core. I've already flushed it, but I want to let you know that this heater core was nasty dirty. I'm going to put the hose here. It's going to force the water back through the heater core. I've bypassed that heater valve right there where you see those clamps. And the bad water comes out here. So let's take a look at this and see what happens. I'm flushing the heater core only. First things first though, if you don't bypass it, you should have that turned on warm to hot. That heater valve should be open to make this work. How do you know it's open? Because water will come out this other end. Here we go. Let's take a look and see what happens. I'm going to get this as close as I can so you can see it, and let's see what happens. And you can see it's still kind of rusty. You can see that water, and you'll keep going until it runs clear. That's flushing out the heater core. This is very rarely done, and nothing will flush a heater core out better than this. See how clear the water is? We're done. With that is a Mega Flush for the engine and the heater core. Now we're going to turn in a minute to the radiator, so stand by. Let's take a look at how this radiator will be flushed out Mega style. First, this is the bottom part of the radiator. This goes to the bottom part of the hose. Let me put some light on that so you can see it. See where that connects to the bottom part of the radiator right there? So what happens is all of the sediment is going to settle through gravity at the bottom part of the radiator hose, or the radiator, part of that radiator outlet. So I'm going to put the hose in the bottom part to loosen all the sediment, bring it to the top, and float it out here, and float it out here, and float it out here. So let's go through it again. There's 3 points of exit. Here, here, and here. Let's see what happens. Yes, we're going to get some water out of here. So I'm going to fill it up. Now we're filling the radiator full of water only, and you're going to start to see it coming out of here first, and then you're going to see it come out of here next. Notice this is bent. We'll have to fix that. It should be coming up here any minute now. Again, we are floating all of the coolant out of there. Now while we're waiting for that, let's take a look with the light and look at the cooling tube for the transmission. Take a look at that. That is part of the transmission cooling tubes. You can see they're circular and they're submerged in coolant. You can see the coolant rising on that cooling tube. I'm not trying to drown it out. If you can see it, right there. Here's it. Right there. Okay, now the water's coming up. Looks like I'm doing pretty good. I've got this on full. And it's rising. It should come out of here first, I'm guessing. And then it's going to come out of here, and it's going to come out of here. We're almost to the top, and if you look down in there, you can see that it's pretty nasty. I've already flushed this. See it coming out there? And it should be coming out here any minute. I'll go ahead and plug this up here. And we'll see it floating out of here. And you can see it, and it's very clear because I've already flushed it. But this typically will bring all the deposits that are at the bottom of the radiator and float those deposits up and out the top and float the deposits out the bottom as well. Both directions. Gravity does the job for you. So we're floating all the debris that direction. Now let's let gravity take over. Here we go. Now comes gravity. I'm going to drain it with the bottom hose. Here we go. So I'll kink my hose again. Remember, I don't have any fancy nozzles. And hold that for me. We're going to go ahead and hold this down in here. And I'm going to set this out and drain it all. As you can see it all come out now. That is a really decent flush, and I'll be ready to hook up in a minute. Now I'm going to evacuate the system. So we'll cut for here and I'll start the evacuation. All right, now I'm going to flush all of the coolant out of the block so I don't have any dilution of the coolant that's going to go in. I'm talking about the new coolant that's going to go in. So if this light isn't in your way, I want you to look down here and I want you to look right here. This is the heater core. This is the exit of the heater core. And this is the exit of the suction hose. We'll start with the top hose and I'll turn on the air. And you can see it all coming out. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and gently blow out the heater core. Second. Blows it back into the engine, no problem. All I got to do is this again. And we now have a dry motor. That's called a dry motor. We're good to go. Next comes the hookup and the prep and the fill. Here we go. Okay, so now we've got, this is loose for now. When you get situations like this and you're done doing something here, I want to caution you to always not say to yourself you'll get it later. If you're done with this, it's time to tighten it down. Don't ever say to yourself, I'll get it later. This is done. I don't need to do any more to this. Therefore, I'll get it now. So that's tight. Now comes the thermostat housing, which was pulled out. Take a good look inside of there and look how bad that is. Look how rusty and debris ridden. No wonder this truck was not cooling, okay? So now that we've looked at that, let's look at the inside of the thermostat housing, and what we see is another problem. We've got to clean up these threads. So if you look at these threads, they're pretty nasty. So we'll cut for a minute and I'll go clean these up. This off in here to get that lip all cleaned off and ready to go. I can pull this out now. Reverse. Now I'm just going to go ahead and blow this out real quick. And this as well. Okay, now we're getting ready for the thermostat. Let's take a look at what we have. What we have is probably the wrong thermostat, but let's go ahead and take a look. I was sold this by the parts company, but I'm noticing something. I don't know if it's the right size, so let's take a look at this new size and how it's installed. This is the valve that compresses and turns on, so this part always points to the radiator. In other words, it goes in like this, going to the radiator. And you'll notice that on the thermostat it has an arrow, usually on the side, that has a pointer that says radiator. See where it says radiator there? I'm going to put that down in there and see if it fits. It has a good fit. You see how that fits in that little groove? And now you see why we cleaned it out. We need that to be cleaned out and ready to go. Next comes the gasket. Here we go with the gaskets. Always look at your gaskets first and compare. That looks like it's the right gasket. That one will fit. Now generally you'll see gaskets that have a sticky side that you can peel. This one has a sticky side, and I like to put the sticky side down if it's got that. Let me see. It's very hard sometimes to check and see. You have to actually visually see if you can separate it. This may not have a sticky side. We'll find out really soon here. There we go. Nope, no sticky side. Okay, so this is the finished side going down. It's going to go right in there. I'm not going to use silicone. I don't need it. Not necessary, because the gasket is designed to seal perfectly without any added silicone adhesion material. So I'll go ahead and put that in and line it up. My first bolt is the small bolt, so that'll be my alignment bolt. It's easier to get to, and all I got to do is just kind of go finger loose, turn my gasket, make sure my thermostat doesn't move. If you think it's moved, take it off and check it again. Now I'll go ahead and, now sometimes you can put gasket silicone on a bolt like this. It does help sometimes. In this case, the gasket should take care of it, but I'll put silicone on the threads if I think that it's going to get where coolant's going to escape from it. Looks like we're there. Looks like we're in there fairly good. Now comes the time I'm going to tighten it down. In the process of tightening it down, you should have a torque wrench, but I've done this enough that I know exactly how to tighten it down. I'm just going to go barely snug here and go to the next side. Barely snug here. Now, how tight do I go? When I see this starting to compress, I stop. This is about 14 to 15 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go here and stop. I'm going to go here and stop. If you go too tight, you'll crack the housing. It's just aluminum and it's not that strong. So always remember to do each side equally as you're coming up tight. Looking good there. Next comes my connection to the radiator. We're going to go right onto it. And I will go ahead and thread that on. Bring my clamp up to where I can get to it. And clamp it on. All right. And we'll cut from there, and I'll go ahead and tighten up all these clamps.